You've walked past it 100 times. That pile, that corner, that room you keep the door closed to. Each time you tell yourself tomorrow, but tomorrow arrives wearing the same excuse, and the mess remains like a patient ghost waiting for you to finally turn around and look. This isn't about laziness. Carl Gustav Jung discovered something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Your home doesn't just shelter you, it reveals you. Every unwashed dish is a conversation you haven't finished with yourself. Every pile of clothes is a decision you're postponing. Every layer of dust is time you're pretending doesn't pass. When you refuse to clean, you're not refusing the work, you're refusing the mirror. Because cleaning forces you into presence. It demands you witness the space you've created, the chaos you've normalized, the disorder you've learned to call home. And somewhere beneath your conscious awareness, you know that the moment you begin to organize the external world, the internal world will have to follow. That terrifies you more than you're willing to admit. Jung spent decades studying why humans avoid what would heal them. He found that we don't resist cleaning because we're tired or busy. We resist it because it strips away the comfortable fog between who we are and who we're pretending to be. The mess protects you. It gives you something to blame your mood on. It creates distance between you and your actual life. It allows you to say, I'll start living properly once this is sorted, while never actually sorting it. Look around right now. Not at the mess itself, but at what the mess allows you to avoid feeling. The emptiness of a perfectly clean room. The silence that arrives when there's nothing left to distract you. The uncomfortable question that surfaces when order returns. Now what? Your psyche uses disorder as a shield. As long as the environment is chaotic, you don't have to face the deeper chaos, the unprocessed grief, the unnamed fear, the dreams you abandoned, the person you've become while you weren't paying attention. Jung called this the shadow's favorite hiding place. Not in darkness, but in plain sight, in the things you see every day but refuse to truly witness. The pile of mail you don't open isn't paper, it's avoidance made material. The clothes on the floor aren't fabric, they're the weight of decisions you haven't made about who you're becoming. The dust gathering on surfaces isn't dirt, it's time itself, visible and ignored, showing you exactly how long you've been living in this suspended state. This is why some mornings you wake with the sudden desperate need to clean everything. Not because you finally found motivation, but because your unconscious can no longer bear the weight of its own reflection. The psyche demands acknowledgement. It uses the external world to show you what you've buried internally. And when you ignore that demand, the mess doesn't stay neutral. It grows heavy. The air thickens. Your breathing becomes shallow without you noticing. The space that once felt like careless clutter begins to feel like a cage you built, one postponed task at a time. There's a language older than words. Before humans learned to speak, the psyche expressed itself through symbols, through objects arranged with meaning, through spaces that held emotional weight. Your ancestors understood this instinctively. They built altars, cleared thresholds, arranged stones to mark the sacred from the profane. You still do this, you just don't realize it. Every object in your home carries psychic weight. Not the practical kind, the kind measured in memories, in emotions you haven't metabolized, in versions of yourself you're not ready to release. That book you keep meaning to read sits on your nightstand like a promise you made to a version of yourself that no longer exists. The broken thing you swear you'll fix one day isn't about repair. It's about the fantasy that you're the kind of person who finishes things, who follows through, who doesn't let life slip away in small abandonments. The drawer stuffed with random objects you can't bear to sort through? Jung would tell you it's a psychic tomb. Each item inside is a memory you shoved away instead of processing. The unconscious doesn't forget, it just reorganizes. What you won't face emotionally, it hands back to you materially. This is why you can't throw things away even when you know you should. You're not attached to the object. You're attached to the emotional imprint it carries. The concert ticket from a night you felt truly alive. The gift from someone who's no longer in your life. The clothes from when your body was different, when your story was different, when you still believed certain futures were possible. Letting go of the object means letting go of that version of reality, and your psyche clings to it because grief is harder than clutter. Jung discovered this in his own life. After his break with Freud, he fell into what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. His home became a reflection of his inner chaos. He built, he destroyed, he rearranged. He realized he was trying to externalize the psychic fragmentation he couldn't yet integrate internally. The disorder wasn't the problem, it was the symptom. Your home is doing the same thing. It's showing you in three-dimensional space exactly what's happening in the invisible architecture of your mind. The cluttered desk is the cluttered thoughts. The unmade bed is the restless psyche that can't settle. The kitchen sink full of dishes is the emotional backlog you haven't processed. And here's what makes it unbearable. You know this already. Not consciously, but somewhere deeper, in the part of you that speaks in dreams and sudden urges and unnamed dread. You know that your environment is a confession. It tells the truth about you that your mouth won't say. This is why you avoid certain rooms, why you keep the door closed to spaces that have become too honest, why you walk past the mess quickly, eyes averted, breath held, as if not looking will make it less real. But the unconscious is patient. It doesn't need you to look. It just needs you to feel. And you feel it constantly. The low-grade anxiety, the vague shame, the sense that you're failing at something you can't quite name. That feeling isn't about the mess. It's about what the mess represents. The life you're not living, the person you're not becoming, the clarity you're avoiding, the transformation you know is waiting on the other side of finally dealing with all of this. Jung said the psyche always moves toward wholeness, even when the ego resists. Your mess is that movement made visible. It's the unconscious trying to get your attention the only way it knows how, by making the internal external, by turning emotion into matter, by building a mirror you can't escape. The question isn't whether you'll clean. The question is whether you're ready to see what cleaning reveals. Jung warned that the shadow isn't what you think it is. It's not evil. It's not even necessarily dark. The shadow is simply everything you've decided you're not allowed to be. Every emotion you've suppressed, every desire you've denied, every truth about yourself you've deemed unacceptable. And it doesn't disappear, it relocates. The shadow moves into the corners of your home, into the spaces you refuse to tend, into the disorder you've normalized. It takes up residence in the pile that never gets sorted, the closet that stays closed, the room that somehow always stays temporary, even though you've lived here for years. Look at where the mess accumulates. That's not random. That's a map of your psyche showing you exactly what you're avoiding. The kitchen mess means you're not nourishing yourself properly, not just with food but with care, with attention, with the daily rituals that say I matter. The bedroom chaos means you're not resting, not truly. You're collapsing into unconsciousness each night, instead of creating a space where genuine restoration can happen. The bathroom neglect, Jung would tell you that's about purification rituals you've abandoned. Water in dreams represents the unconscious. When you let the bathroom become grimy, you're symbolically saying you're not ready to cleanse what needs cleansing. You're not ready to wash away the old so the new can emerge. Every avoided corner is a conversation with your shadow that you keep postponing. And the shadow gets louder the longer you ignore it. It doesn't shout, it just makes the space feel heavier. You walk into certain rooms and immediately feel your energy drain. That's not the mess itself. That's your psyche exhausting itself trying to avoid what the mess represents. The shadow thrives on avoidance. It grows strong in darkness, in the places you refuse to illuminate. This is why cleaning can feel like confronting something alive, because in a sense you are. You're confronting the parts of yourself that have been living in exile. That pile of papers isn't just disorganization. It's every decision you've been too afraid to make. Open them, sort them, face them, and you're suddenly facing your own cowardice, your own paralysis, your own pattern of choosing numbing comfort over necessary action. The clothes all over the floor aren't laziness, they're identity confusion made visible. Each outfit represents a possibility, a version of yourself you might present to the world. When they're scattered everywhere, it's because you don't know who you are anymore. You're trying on identities and discarding them, hoping one will finally feel true. Jung spent years understanding why his patients couldn't change even when they desperately wanted to. He discovered that the ego creates elaborate defenses to protect itself from transformation, because transformation requires death, the death of who you've been, the death of the familiar story, the death of the comfortable lie. Your mess is one of those defenses. As long as the environment is chaotic, you have an excuse for why your life isn't working. Once I get organized, then I'll start that project, then I'll make that change, then I'll become who I'm supposed to be. But you never get organized, because getting organized means losing the excuse. It means standing in a clear space with nothing left to blame, facing the terrifying truth that you're the only thing standing between yourself and your own life. The shadow whispers this to you at night. In the moments before sleep, when the defenses soften, you know that the disorder isn't protecting you, it's imprisoning you. You know that every day you don't clean is another day you're choosing to live in the reflection of your own avoidance. But knowing doesn't change anything, because the shadow isn't defeated by awareness, it's integrated through action. You have to physically move through the space it occupies. You have to touch the objects it hides behind. You have to feel the emotions that rise when you finally stop avoiding and start facing. This is why people cry when they clean out a closet. They're not crying about old clothes. They're crying because they've just walked into a room of their psyche they've kept locked for years. The shadow has been waiting there, patient and quiet, holding every feeling they weren't ready to feel. And when you finally arrive, when you finally open that door and let the light in, the shadow doesn't fight you. It thanks you. Because the shadow doesn't want to be in exile. It wants to come home. It wants to be integrated, acknowledged, accepted. It wants to stop living in the dark corners of your environment and return to the wholeness of your being. But first, you have to be willing to meet it there. There's a particular kind of paralysis that has nothing to do with laziness. You stand at the edge of the mess, fully intending to begin, and something in your nervous system simply shuts down. Your limbs feel impossibly heavy. Your mind goes blank. The task that seemed manageable from a distance becomes overwhelming the moment you're close enough to touch it. Jung would recognize this immediately. This is the body saying what the mind won't admit. I'm not ready to face what's underneath. Because cleaning isn't physical labor, it's archaeological work. Every layer you remove reveals another layer beneath. Every object you touch carries a memory, an emotion, a fragment of self you buried there. Your body knows this before your conscious mind does. The resistance you feel isn't weakness, it's protection. Your nervous system is trying to keep you safe from the emotional flood it knows is coming. It remembers what happened last time you tried to sort through things, the sudden grief, the unexpected anger, the wave of shame that arrived without warning, so it freezes you before you can begin. This is why motivation doesn't work. You can't logic your way past a nervous system response. You can't shame yourself into action when your body is actively working to keep you motionless. The ego wants to clean, the shadow doesn't. And the shadow lives in the body, in the gut feeling that says not today, in the sudden exhaustion that appears the moment you decide to start. People misunderstand this completely. They think they need more willpower, more discipline, more motivation. But Jung discovered that the psyche doesn't respond to force. It responds to recognition. You don't overcome the resistance. You speak to it. Stand in front of the mess and ask it directly. What are you protecting me from? Don't expect words. Expect sensation. A tightness in your chest. A knot in your stomach. A sudden urge to check your phone. To walk away. To do literally anything except stay present with what you're feeling. That sensation is the answer. The body is holding the emotion the mind can't process. The mess is holding the memory. The consciousness can't integrate. And the resistance is the bridge between them. The psychic guardian saying you're not ready yet. But here's what Jung understood that most people miss. The resistance loosens the moment you acknowledge it. Not defeat it, not overcome it. Acknowledge it. I see you. I feel you. I understand you're trying to protect me. Something shifts when you do this. The body recognizes that you're not going to force your way through. You're not going to override its wisdom. You're going to work with it, move with it. Let it guide the pace of your transformation. And slowly, sometimes imperceptibly, the paralysis begins to melt. You pick up one object, just one. You don't commit to cleaning everything. You don't make grand declarations. You simply touch one thing with full awareness, feeling whatever emotion rises, letting it move through you without judgment. This is active imagination in its purest form. Jung developed this technique for engaging with the unconscious directly. Not through analysis, through participation, through allowing the psyche to express itself in real time, in physical space, through your actual hands. The object you pick up might trigger nothing, or it might trigger everything. A photograph, a letter, a gift from someone who's gone. Suddenly you're not holding paper or cloth. You're holding years of unspoken grief, of frozen time, of a version of yourself you've been carrying like a ghost. Let it come. The tears aren't weakness, they're thawing. They're the psyche finally allowed to feel what it had to freeze in order to survive. Your body has been holding this for you until you were strong enough to hold it yourself. And as you feel it, as you let the emotion move through your system instead of pushing it back down, something miraculous happens. The next object becomes easier to touch. The next corner becomes less frightening. The resistance doesn't disappear, but it transforms from a wall into a dialogue. Your body stops fighting you because you've stopped fighting it. This is why people describe sudden bursts of cleaning energy that seem to come from nowhere. It's not motivation, it's release. The psyche has been given permission to move, and movement is its natural state. Stagnation was the defense, flow is the truth. But you can't force flow, you can only allow it. Some days you'll pick up one object and that will be enough. The unconscious will say that's all I can handle today, and you'll honor that. Other days you'll start with one object and 6 hours will pass in what feels like minutes because you've entered a trance state, a moving meditation where the hands know exactly what to do and the mind finally gets quiet. Both are sacred, both are transformation. Jung warned against the tyranny of should. You should clean the whole house. You should finish what you start. You should be better than this. That voice isn't your higher self. It's the internalized critic that keeps you stuck in shame. The real work happens when you release the should and enter the don'ts. This is where I am. This is what I can do today. This is the pace my psyche needs. The body exhales when it hears this. The resistance softens, and in that softening, space opens. Space for one more object, one more corner, one more small act of acknowledgement that says I'm here, I'm present, I'm willing to meet myself exactly as I am. That's not discipline, that's love. And love is the only force strong enough to transform the shadow, not by destroying it, but by welcoming it home. There's a moment just before you begin when everything changes. You're standing in the space, finally present, finally willing. The air feels different, heavier, but not oppressive, expectant, like the silence before a storm breaks. You don't announce what you're about to do. You don't make promises. You simply reach out and touch the first object, and the ritual begins. Jung studied ancient practices obsessively because he understood that ritual is the language the unconscious speaks fluently. Every culture has purification rites, sweeping thresholds, washing feet, clearing altars. These weren't about cleanliness, they were about creating a bridge between the mundane and the sacred, between the visible world and the invisible one. When you clean with awareness, you're performing this ancient work. Your hand moves across a surface, wiping away dust, but you're not removing dirt, you're removing time. Each particle of dust is a moment that passed while you weren't paying attention, a day you moved through unconsciously, an hour you let slip away. The dust is evidence of your own absence from your life. When it's gone, you're not left with cleanliness, you're left with presence. The rhythm matters, the slow, deliberate movement of cloth across wood, the repetitive motion of folding fabric, the sound of water running, of objects being placed, of drawers closing with intention. This rhythm bypasses the conscious mind completely. It speaks directly to the limbic system, to the ancient brain that understands pattern and repetition as safety, as order, as home. Your breathing changes without you noticing, slower, deeper. The mental chatter that usually drowns out everything begins to quiet, not because you're trying to meditate, but because your body has entered a state that Jung called active participation with the unconscious. You're not thinking about cleaning, you're simply doing it. And in that doing, the psyche begins to rearrange itself. Every object you return to its place is a piece of yourself being reintegrated. The book back on the shelf is a thought given form. The clothes folded and put away are decisions finally made about who you're becoming. The dish washed and dried is an emotion processed and released. You can feel it happening. Not in your mind, but in your chest, in your shoulders, in the way your jaw unclenches without you realizing it was ever tight. This is the alchemy Jung spent decades trying to understand. The ancient alchemists weren't trying to turn lead into gold. They were trying to transform consciousness through physical work, through engaging with matter as if matter itself was sacred. They believed that changing the external substance changed the internal being. They were right. When you clean a surface, you're not just affecting the material world. You're sending a signal deep into your nervous system that says, I am taking care of this space. I am taking care of myself. I am worthy of order. I am worthy of clarity. I am worthy of peace. The unconscious hears this, and it responds. Suddenly you notice the light has changed. It's not brighter, the sun hasn't moved, but it feels different. It penetrates deeper. It reaches corners that were somehow shadowed even in daylight. This isn't metaphor. This is your perception shifting in real time, because your internal state is shifting. The room breathes differently because you're breathing differently. There's no destination, no perfect end state you're trying to reach. The transformation isn't in the finished room, it's in the movement itself, in the conversation between your hands and the objects they touch, between your awareness and the space it inhabits. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole, not by adding something new but by integrating what was always there but fragmented, scattered, denied. Each small act of order is an act of integration. The pile that overwhelmed you an hour ago no longer exists, not because you forced your way through it, but because you moved through it one object at a time, feeling what needed to be felt, releasing what needed to be released, keeping what resonated with who you're becoming. Some things you threw away without hesitation, others you held for a long moment, feeling the weight of goodbye, letting the grief move through you before placing them in the donation bag. This isn't about minimalism or perfection, it's about honesty. Keeping only what reflects your truth, releasing what belongs to a story you're no longer telling. And with each release, the space opens, not just physically, but psychically. You can feel it in the way your thoughts begin to flow instead of circle, in the way possibilities start to appear where before there was only heaviness. The ritual isn't about control, it's about creating conditions where transformation becomes possible. And transformation is already happening. You can feel it in the stillness that's no longer frightening, in the silence that's no longer accusatory, in the emerging clarity that doesn't demand anything from you except that you stay present, stay willing, stay open to what wants to shift. There comes a point when you stop, not because you're finished, there's always more that could be done, but because something inside you recognizes completion, not of the task but of the process. The psyche has said what it needed to say, the unconscious has shown you what you were ready to see. You step back and look at the space. It's not perfect. There are still imperfections, still areas that need attention, still signs of life being lived, but something fundamental has changed. The energy is different. The air moves differently. The silence that fills the room isn't the heavy silence of avoidance, it's the breathing silence of presence. You feel it in your body first. The weight that's been pressing on your chest for weeks, maybe months, has lifted, not completely, but enough that you can finally take a full breath without it catching somewhere in your throat. This is what Jung meant by integration. Not perfection, not the elimination of shadow, but the conscious acknowledgement of what was hidden, the willing engagement with what was avoided, the gentle reconciliation between who you've been and who you're becoming. The room reflects this. Objects that caused anxiety when they were scattered now feel neutral in their places. The surface you couldn't bear to look at is now simply a surface. The corner that held so much psychic weight is now just a corner. The energy that was trapped there has been released, not through force but through attention. You've changed your relationship with your environment, which means you've changed your relationship with yourself. This is the secret most people never understand. They think cleaning is about maintenance, about keeping up appearances, about meeting some external standard of acceptable living. But Jung discovered that every external action is simultaneously an internal one. When you organize matter, you organize psyche. When you create order outside, you create coherence inside. The opposite is also true. When you abandon your environment, you abandon yourself. But you didn't abandon it today. You showed up. You faced what needed facing. You moved through resistance instead of collapsing under it. And your unconscious registered every moment of that choice. Something subtle has shifted in your nervous system. The next time you walk into this space, your body won't tense the way it used to. The shame spiral won't trigger automatically. The voice that says you should have done this weeks ago will be quieter, less convinced of its own authority. Because you've proven something to yourself. Not that you can maintain perfection. That was never the point. But that you can meet yourself where you are. That you can face your own reflection in the mirror of your surroundings. That you can engage with your shadow without being destroyed by it. Jung spent his life teaching that the unconscious isn't the enemy, it's the unrecognized ally. The part of you that holds truths your conscious mind isn't ready to speak. Your home has been that ally, showing you in three-dimensional space exactly what your psyche needed you to see. And you saw it, finally. Not with judgment, but with recognition. The mess wasn't failure, it was communication. The disorder wasn't weakness, it was protection. The resistance wasn't laziness, it was a nervous system trying to keep you safe from overwhelm. Now that you understand the language, everything changes. You'll still have days when dishes pile up, when clothes scatter, when dust gathers. Life is motion, and motion creates disorder, but the disorder won't carry the same psychic weight it once did, because you know now what it's trying to tell you. When the mess starts to accumulate again, you won't see dirt, you'll see a signal. Your unconscious saying something needs attention, something needs to be processed, something needs to be felt. And instead of avoiding it until it becomes overwhelming, you'll be able to meet it earlier. One dish before it becomes a sink full. One surface before it becomes a room full. One emotion before it becomes a year's worth of frozen grief. This is the gift of awareness, not control, not perfection, just the ability to recognize what's happening as it's happening, and to choose presence over postponement. You look at the space one more time before leaving it. The light catches dust motes floating in the air. Evidence that matter is always in motion, that stillness is an illusion, that life itself is a constant process of accumulation and release. The dust will return, the disorder will come again, but you'll be different when it does. Because today you learned something that no one can teach you, something you could only discover by walking through it yourself. Your environment is not separate from you. It's not something happening to you. It's something you're creating consciously or unconsciously with every choice, every gesture, every moment of attention or avoidance. And when you change the way you engage with your surroundings, you change the way you engage with your life. Jung called this individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, not by adding something new, but by recognizing what was always there, bringing the unconscious into consciousness, integrating the shadow into the self. You just participated in that process, through the simple, humble act of cleaning your home. The ancient mystics knew this truth. The Zen masters who swept temples at dawn, the priests who purified altars before ritual, the healers who cleared space before ceremony. They understood that the external work was always internal work, that changing matter was always changing consciousness, that the path to transformation begins exactly where you are. In the mess, in the disorder, in the uncomfortable truth of how you've been living. And the path forward emerges the moment you're willing to see it. But there's something Jung discovered that goes even deeper than the mess you create in your space. Some people never let disorder accumulate at all. They clean up too quickly, move past too fast, refuse to let anything linger long enough to be felt. And that speed creates a different kind of shadow, one that fossilizes inside you, where no amount of external order can reach it. Watch this next.